In the medieval and early modern world, the sword was more than a weapon. It was a tool of survival, a sign of rank, and a piece of technology that changed with war. Let's look at the 8 iconic blades that show how the battlefield, the law, and daily life shaped the swords people carried. We begin with one of the most dramatic blades on the field, the great two-handed sword, or Zweihänder. In the 15th and 16th centuries in Germany, some of these weapons reached close to 2 meters in length and were carried by elite Landsknecht mercenaries. Their task was to crash into enemy pike blocks, knocking aside spearheads and breaking formation. Handling such a long blade was dangerous work, so only trusted men were chosen and often paid more for the risk. Next comes the arming sword, the everyday sidearm of many knights across medieval Europe. Shorter and lighter than the huge two-handers, its blade usually measured around 70 to 80 centimeters and was meant for use with one hand and a shield. It could cut, thrust, and parry, so it stayed useful in many different encounters. This was the sword most often worn on a knight's belt in camp, on the march, and in battle, a quiet but dependable mark of his role. Beyond these standard blades stood the broader family of great swords, long two-handed weapons of the late Middle Ages. Many measured more than 140 centimeters and were carried across the shoulder rather than at the hip. On open ground, they were used in wide, sweeping blows that could push back groups of enemies or tear into tight lines. In narrow corridors or stairways, they were far less useful, so they were chosen mainly for open field engagements. Further along the range of designs was the Falchion, a rougher and more direct blade. Unlike the straight, double-edged swords of many nobles, the Falchion was short, heavy, and usually single-edged, closer to a cleaver than a knightly sword. Its weight near the tip gave it serious cutting strength against unarmored or lightly protected targets. To many common soldiers, its shape echoed tools from farms and workshops. The Falchion was not meant to impress in halls or courts. It served as a tough, practical weapon for those who needed something simple and strong. Higher in the development of swordcraft, the long sword gained importance as armor and tactics shifted. With a longer grip and blade than the arming sword, it was normally used in 2 hands for extra reach and control. 14th and 15th century fighting manuals from the Holy Roman Empire and Italy describe methods for cuts, thrusts, half-swording into gaps in plate, and grappling at close range. This made the long sword a weapon of refined skill, valued by knights, professional men-at-arms, and fencing masters. Away from the battlefield, another type of blade served a very different purpose: the executioner's sword. Broad, heavy, and often without a sharp point, it was built for a single task: beheading. These swords appeared in town squares and courts where public executions showed the strength of rulers and the law. Their wide blades were meant to deliver a clean, final stroke. People remembered them less for their craft and more for the fear and silence they brought, a clear sign of the state's power over life and death. On the sea, another form of sword evolved to fit its own harsh setting: the cutlass. Short, sturdy, and usually single-edged, it could be swung easily on crowded decks where rigging, rails, and crew left little room to move. Sailors, marines, and privateers chose it because it was simple, durable, and quick to use in sudden clashes. In that tight world of spray and timber, reach mattered less than speed and control, and the cutlass met those needs well. By the end of the period, one particular blade pointed toward a changing age: the rapier. Long, narrow, and focused on thrusting, it belonged more to 16th century streets, halls, and courts than to medieval battlefields. Nobles and wealthy city dwellers wore it as a civilian sidearm for duels, self-defense, and display. Skill with the rapier became a sign of style and honor, showing how the sword was moving from a tool of war toward a symbol of rank and reputation. Together, these 8 blades show that a sword was never just steel. It reflected the world that forged it. Subscribe for more medieval history videos.